With the latest agriculture news from across the state and nation, it's time for the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. Here's your host, Sabrina Halverson.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning on the AgNet News Hour. Coming up later, a restraining order is issued against the Water Board in a SGMA implementation case. We'll have more on that, but we start today with a special segment from Brian German.
Welcome to another episode of the Making Sense of Biologicals campaign, a series that takes a dive into various topics with experts in the field of biologicals. This episode is made possible by Arcadian Plant Health, the largest independent marine plant harvesting, cultivation, and extraction company in the world, an international leader in sustainable science-based biological solutions for high-value as well as broadacre crops. Today we're joined by Dr. Holly Little, Director of Research and Development with Acadian Plant Health. And now, Holly, you've got quite an extensive history of working with biostimulants, and so we can start there with how biostimulants can help to enhance plant growth and how that serves to benefit growers.
That's a great question. So there's a lot of different biostimulants out there on the market these days, and we're seeing more and more of them, which is really great because they are tools for growers to use. And a lot of biostimulants have, or at least claim to have, some similar benefits to growers, and abiotic stress resistance is one of those. So typically surrounding drought, heat, cold, salinity, various things that we would classify as oxidative stresses that have actually some similar damage that they cause within the plant, and that the plants have some similar natural defense mechanisms that they use to defend against those stresses. But one of the things that at Acadian Plant Health we really pride ourselves on, and actually one of the things that brought me to Acadian over 16 years ago, was the fact that it's a science-based company. So the science that's done both in-house as well as externally with various research partners ranging from private consultants to academic and government researchers to show and understand how to best use our products from a grower's perspective, as well as from a more fundamental perspective of what's happening within the plant, is really important so that not only we as a company, but growers can have an understanding of how products work and the confidence in them. So one of the biggest areas, it seems like always, but every year it seems like it's more and more important in one region or another, is that abiotic stress resistance. And so, right now in California, it's been hot. We've been setting heat records, even with relatively plentiful rain over the winter season. There's just not enough water to go around, and growing conditions are always challenging and are always unpredictable. And so what we see with the use of our seaweed extract-based biostimulants is that they can help the plant be better prepared for those stresses when they come on. So they can do things like acclimate to that stress a little bit faster. They can respond quicker when that stress comes on, either by closing stomata to conserve water while they go through that acclimation process, or by producing antioxidants, natural antioxidants within the plant that helps defend against some of the damaging free radicals that occur during stress. Or even, something as simple as some work we've done over the last 3 years with an extension specialist at the University of California is just looking at how does stim water potential become positively affected by the applications of our products. So we've made soil applications of our seaweed extract biostimulant about once a month throughout the season under sort of normal irrigation conditions as well as water stressed conditions. And thankfully, there's really good teams of researchers there who will go out every week and measure midday stim water potential to look at what the water status of those trees are. And what we saw with that study is that under both actually the well-watered conditions and the water stress conditions, the treated trees had a higher stim water potential or a less negative stim water potential, which means that they have a higher water content. So even though they were irrigated with the exact same amount of water, they had a better water status. That higher water status will actually become really important for those plants undergoing normal physiological processes, photosynthesis, moving sugars and nutrients throughout the plant, just being able to be growing and productive even when water is a limiting factor. And so we oftentimes think, oh, well, I'm watering what I'm supposed to be watering. Trees aren't stressed. Well, when it gets hot, trees actually still get water stressed. So even under what we consider ideal watering regimes, we can still have stress impacting that crop potential and that yield potential, not only in the current year, but in future years and perennial crops. So understanding that can really help growers know how to best use water, not only when it's limited, but when it's available as well, to maintain the health of the crop and their productivity, to help with not only their environmental sustainability, but their economic sustainability as well.
We will continue this segment later in this show. You're listening to the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Holverson. In today's National Spotlight, wheat prices continue under downward pressure. Here's Carrie Crawford.
The USDA is forecasting a U.S. wheat crop larger than had been expected, just over 2 billion bushels. That would be about 11% more than this past crop year. And if you look at worldwide wheat output, that's growing as well. So a lot of wheat out there now, more on the way.
Keeping pressure on prices.
USDA Outlook Board Chairman Mark Jekanowski told us.
We lowered our season average farm price all wheat forecast by 80 cents per bushel this month, and for the new crop. So it's now at $5.70 per bushel. That would be down $1.26 year over year.
Or a drop of 18%. Gary Crawford reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
And USDA Outlook Board Chairman Mark Jekanowski says U.S. wheat faces stiff competition on the world markets.
Russia and Ukraine are still exporting a lot, so the Black Sea supplies are relatively abundant, especially for the old crop. We raised our Russia wheat export forecast for the old crop by 1.5 million tons to a new record, 55.5 million tons. And then for the new crop year overall, production will be, currently forecast to be up about 7.2 million tons. So yeah, a lot of competition out there, and keeping pressure on prices.
That's today's National Spotlight. Now here's the livestock report. A recent USDA study looks at how cover crop production integrated into cattle operations might provide economic benefits for producers as well as resource conservation benefits. Rod Bain reports.
Integrating cover crops as part of cattle operations. How might this work? What might it do to improve an operation's profitability?
Cover crops can be used for livestock forage. So like livestock could graze them in the spring or the fall, or they can be mechanically harvested and stored. And we just didn't really have an understanding about how prevalent this was. So for a long time, people have been talking about the potential economic benefits of doing that on livestock operations.
Those areas of focus are behind a recently released USDA study. Maria Bowman of the Economic Research Service is one of the study's authors. Among its findings,
many studies found that integrating cover crops into livestock systems was more profitable than livestock systems that weren't using cover crops. And that was primarily driven by that forage value of the cover crop, so using it and feeding it to livestock.
What about a breakdown by types of operations? Say dairy and beef cattle operations.
When we dug in a little bit more in that Census of Ag data, we saw that dairy and feedlot operations with cropland were more likely to go cover crops. So about 33% of dairy operations and 27% of feedlot operations, so much higher than overall adoption rates in the 2017 Census of Ag. So that suggests that it might be more economic for those operations, that they might have a reason to be cover cropping relative to other operation types.
In terms of total profitability with cover crop integrated livestock operations, a multitude of factors determine that. Factors ranging from types of cover crops to fixed cost for harvesting systems.
Climate and precipitation is another one. If you don't have much water, it's difficult to establish and grow a lot of cover crop forage and labor availability. So potential to expand, but also barriers.
The study also looks at cover crop adoption within livestock operations by region.
We saw that eastern uplands, which is parts of West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, and also the central eastern Texas and Louisiana area have the potential to expand cover cropping in livestock systems. So a lot of livestock, but not a lot of cover crops.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Along with diversifying cuts based on market research and consumer preference, U.S. pork market strategy builds confidence in quality and safe U.S. pork. Kelly Wicks, manager of market growth for National Pork Board, says the latest export numbers are showing that strategy is on track.
We execute on that strategy through our strategic partnerships with the U.S. Meat Export Federation, National Pork Producers Council, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture. All of those collective teams bring a focus to new and expanding regions and countries that hold opportunities for current and expanded pork consumption, and to position ourselves as a supplier of choice for imported pork. We also want to highlight and show our appreciation to the USDA for the Regional Agricultural Promotion Program that recently awarded their first tranche of funds to organizations.
She tells us about how they measure success.
So success is largely measured on the results as part of our investment in trade promotion for U.S. pork, and that is shown essentially in the data reported by USDA and U.S. Meat Export Federation. At the National Pork Board, we also further analyze that data to look at current year trade data on a 3-year and 5-year average comparison. And so we also want to put a focus on decreasing reliance on any one market and to spread our exports across multiple regions and countries.
For example, NPB evaluates market growth with and without China.
Due to China's inconsistent demand and the challenges we face with market access, we're limited in our ability to compete along with China's own domestic herder structuring. And so because of this, we strive to look at markets outside of just China. In the recent January through May data for the year, for example, we were able to see 25% growth in total value and 21% growth in total volume as compared to the 5-year average without China. Because we look at this data, we can use this analysis to further inform our partners on export performance and provide recommendations based on this historical view.
You can view the most recent export data report at porkcheckoff.org. This is the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halverson. We will be back in just a moment with more agriculture news. You're listening to the AgNet News Hour. With today's AgNet West headlines, here's Farm News Director Brian Jarman, and he starts today with an interview.
Joined by Dusty Ferentz again today, Kings County Farm Bureau Executive Director, to talk about a recent development in the ongoing challenge with the State Water Resources Control Board. And now, Dusty, before we get into the announcement earlier this week, let's get a little recap of what we've discussed before and what the issue is that you folks are fighting against and what this recent announcement will mean now.
Back on April 16th of this year, the California State Water Resources Control Board placed the Tulare Lake Subbasin on probation under SGMA. Kings County Farm Bureau was and still is under the impression that SGMA designation was illegal and improper. So in May, we filed a challenge in Superior Court on that decision, which got us to our hearing for our temporary restraining order against the probationary declaration. And so what the restraining order does for the subbasin is eliminate the need to record pumping data with the intention of submitting it to the state board. So until further notice, the rule or the requirement rather to record data and submit it is on pause. Our next step is a hearing for a preliminary injunction, and that's scheduled for August 20th. And if the injunction is granted, then that's a longer term pause on the rules of probation. That'll pause those rules until our case goes to trial.
So a bit of a reprieve on some of those regulations until the next step in the process you're engaged in. And now, again, in our previous conversation, you'd noted this challenge that's been brought. There's more involved than just the Tulare Lake Subbasin, right?
You know, I think it's important to call out that this decision and the decision that will be made on the 20th really affect all of California. First, of course, the Tulare Lake Subbasin, but next, the subbasins that have probationary hearings scheduled after us. This is a statewide issue. This is bigger than Kings County, and this is bigger than agriculture. We're fighting for our communities. We're fighting for all of Kings County and every county that's got a subbasin in it that's going before the state board and being considered for probation. This is a big fight, and we need a lot of help. And we ask people to consider contributing to the SGMA Defense Fund. Kings County Farm Bureau has invested over $100,000 just to get the TRO. And we've got a lot of work, a lot of expensive work ahead of us, and everybody stands to benefit from the right outcome of this challenge.
Australian agricultural innovator New Farm has recently signed a research and commercial partnership with the ag biotech firm MOA Technology. MOA's discovered new herbicide classes using its innovative platform currently being tested in the United States, UK, France, and Spain. New Farm will have exclusive access to one of these new herbicides, providing MOA with upfront payments, development milestones, and future royalties. The herbicide could be the first new broad-spectrum herbicide in 40 years. Both companies will collaborate on research, with New Farm leading the final development and market phases. MOA, founded in 2017 from Oxford University, has screened over 750,000 compounds and found 60 promising herbicides, many already in field trials. In a press release, the companies highlighted the partnership's potential to bring new effective weed management solutions to farmers, addressing the costly issue of resistant weeds. The U.S. Department of Agriculture's announced $4.5 million in funding to create 3 new nutrition hubs in communities across the country. The purpose is to improve food and nutrition security and prevent diet-related chronic diseases, especially in underserved areas. Building on a pilot nutrition hub established with Southern University and A&M College, this initiative, funded by the National Institute of Food and Agriculture's Agriculture and Food Research Initiative, aims to provide science-based, tailored nutritional information to local communities. These hubs will support USDA's broader efforts to enhance nutrition and diet-related health outcomes by offering personalized nutrition guidance and fostering research and education opportunities. The initiative's part of USDA's broader effort to reduce diet-related diseases through precision nutrition research and community engagement. Applications for funding are open until October 3rd. California Certified Organic Farmers is offering assistance to help farmers navigate the process of organic transition. CCOF Foundation Organic Transition Grants and technical assistance are available for farmers and ranchers in California who want to transition to certified organic production. The program provides $10,000 annually over 3 years, totaling $30,000. Additionally, eligible farmers may receive $1,000 per transitioning acre for up to 30 acres to support soil building practices. To qualify, applicants must farm or ranch in California, be at least 18 years old, practice organic methods, and have the landowner's approval if renting. The grants also offer mentorship and technical support in agronomy, business, marketing, and market development. Applications are due by August 2nd, and more information is available at ccof.org. I'm Brian German for AgNet West Radio Network.
The USDA has a new program to help feed kids during the summer. That's coming up on This Land of Ours.
In the summertime when school's out, many families are thinking about cookouts and vacations and such.
But some families are thinking about how to make sure their kids don't go hungry.
Deputy Agriculture Secretary Xochitl Torres Small says over 30 million kids depend on the nutritious meals they get at school, but when school is out, many parents struggle to put food on the table. But this summer, there's a new program called Sunbucks, or Summer EBT.
Sunbucks provides financial assistance to families, $120 per student over the summer to help make sure the kids get the nutritious food they need to keep growing and learning.
And while the money for food purchases is federal money, each state is responsible for the administrative costs to set up and run the program. USDA has announced a grant program to help with that. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
We continue now with that special segment from Brian German.
Welcome to another episode of the Making Sense of Biologicals campaign, a series that takes a dive into various topics with experts in the field of biologicals. This episode is made possible by Arcadian Plant Health, the largest independent marine plant harvesting, cultivation, and extraction company in the world, an international leader in sustainable science-based biological solutions for high-value as well as broadacre crops. Today we're joined by Dr. Holly Little, Director of Research and Development with Acadian Plant Health. And now you touched on it a little bit there, but I was hoping we could get deeper into some of the science behind it in what are the responses that plants are having that are helping to tolerate stresses better.
So one of the benefits that we see is something called osmotic adjustment. And so if we think about kind of on a basic level how water moves through plants, it moves based on a water potential gradient. And so plants have this natural ability to change water potential within cells to bring water into and up and through the plant. So that's sort of how that movement occurs. And as plants undergo stress, they will lower the water potential within their cells, which brings more water in and helps them uptake more water, assuming water's available. And so the plant produces compounds to do that act as what's called a compatible osmolyte. So the plant produces these and it brings in water, but it's not like salts. There's not a negative effect on the functioning or physiology of the plant. They're kind of inert, so to speak, from that perspective. They have lots of really good functions, but they don't have this negative electrical conductivity type of effect, for lack of a better way to put it. And so the compounds in our seaweed extract can function as this compatible osmolyte, but really more importantly, they can elicit the production of these compatible osmolytes within the plant itself. And so the plant's producing these, and what we see in a lot of plant physiology is that the effect on the plant is different if the plant produces its own compounds versus if you're applying a compound. And so you get a more complete response, or sometimes even a different response if you apply a compound externally than the plant makes it on its own. And so that is one of the ways that the products help bring water into the plant and maintain that water status of the plant, even under these stressed conditions. Earlier, I mentioned antioxidant production. That's another mechanism that helps as well. And really, all of these things kind of work together and allows the plant to maintain photosynthesis under stress, maintain chlorophyll in the leaves. You know, if you think about what happens when a plant gets stressed, they turn yellow, leaves fall off. But before you can even see a visual effect, photosynthesis has shut down, gas exchange stops, and that plant actually stops growing and stops putting carbohydrates into the fruit or the nut or whatever is going to be that ultimate yield that we're looking for. And so by being able to maintain that, or at least lessen the reduction of that through the stress period, really helps those plants be more productive and continue to grow and produce a quality crop.
So if I'm understanding correctly here, it's kind of able to jumpstart the natural abilities of the plant to navigate water stresses?
Yeah, and I love that jumpstart reference. That's a great way to put it, because it really is getting that plant ahead of the curve as far as those natural responses. And, you know, there are other compounds out there on the market that help with stress resistance. Some of them just close stomata. That does reduce water loss, but that doesn't maintain the photosynthesis and the productivity of the plant. So there's trade-offs with all of those. But by stimulating those natural stress responses, we can help maintain productivity through that temporary stress.
Very good. And now you noted some work with UC Davis looking at almonds. Is there any other California work that's been done in other crops as well?
Yeah, so a lot of our work in California has focused on almonds, and we've done a fair amount of that. We also have some work, now this wasn't California, this was done in Florida, but was done on citrus, looking at maintaining growth through water stress periods as well. Really good work that supports what we saw here in the field on almonds. We've done a lot of work on various crops, anywhere from ornamental crops to tomatoes across the board. Soybeans, not in California, of course, but this is a really consistent effect that we see across species. So although the work in California has focused more on some key specialty crops, we do see this type of response across the board. Because of the mechanisms involved in it are sort of conserved across plant species, we see the benefit across species as well.
So seeing some positive results there across a variety of crops. And now, because environmental stress is generally just a constant issue, it's rarely ever the same from year to year, but still a consistent challenge in some form. And so what's going to be the forward-looking development approach to things that you're working on there in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, if we kind of look at our crystal ball, I don't think environmental stress is going to get any easier to predict or handle. And I think we're going to continue to see a lot of biostimulants out there on the market and them being utilized more in this realm, which is great. You know, the environmental stresses have actually a larger impact on yield than pests and diseases do. And part of that's because the tools to manage those stresses just aren't the same, right? If you have an insect, you can go out and spray. It's a little bit harder if you have water or heat is to know what to do. So I think what we'll see is that the industry will continue developing biostimulants and understanding how to use them for particular benefits. At Acadian Plant Health, our approach, and one of the biggest things we're focusing on right now, is the development of new biostimulants that really focus on targeted stresses in crop growth stages to be more efficacious. So things that are other active compounds that are synergistic with our seaweed extract that can have that type of an effect, but be more specific and have a greater effect at particular stresses or crop growth stages. In addition to that, we're focusing on formulating to crop protection standards so that there's a greater consistency and understanding of the products, and along with that, the science behind them to understand how they work. So I think we'll continue to see the evolution of the biostimulant market in that way, heading to be more similar to crop protection products as far as all those things go, which is really great and one of the really needed steps in the biostimulant industry.
Yeah, that certainly seems important. The idea of focusing some of that effort on educating the industry on how these can be best applied, because there's still some hesitancy or lack of understanding out there that can hopefully be addressed with some outreach to show how effective they can be when used properly.
Absolutely. And, that's why we do a lot of work. For example, the UC Davis study with the extension specialists really applied hands-on in the field, understanding how it works over multiple years to really give the best indicators of that.
Oh, very good. And again, this has been another installment of the Making Sense of Biologicals campaign, a series to help spread the understanding of biologicals with experts in the field. And again, this episode was made possible by Acadian Plant Health, a world leader in biostimulant solutions, sustainably sourced and scientifically proven to increase crop tolerance to stress, yield, and quality. Learn more about their biostimulant technology at acadianplanthealth-na.com.
This segment is brought to you by Live Earth Products. To get to know a little more about Live Earth Products, we're talking on the phone today with Vice President Russell Taylor. Let's talk about LEP. What are the key benefits of your products for farmers in the Western Zone?
So Live Earth Products, we mine and manufacture a ingredient called humate. Now, humate is rich in organic acids called humic acid and fulvic acid. Now, those are common components in your soil organic matter. And here in the Western United States, unlike, those places around the Mississippi going east, actually have very low organic matter. Now, your organic matter is key think of it as the pantry in the soil. So it's key to water retention, nutrient retention, nutrient cycling, microbial activity, those kind of things. So anything that's going to impact the increase in soil organic matter will also impact things like water holding capacity and nutrient holding capacity, which is a big deal here in the West when water is not as abundant as it is in the east side of the United States.
Now, what about nitrate? I know nitrate can be a problem in some soils. So how do LEP products help reduce the nitrate problem on saturated soils?
So Live Earth Products is not unique in how we affect nitrogen, but any organic matter will help retain nitrogen. So typically the mechanisms that we use are blending the nitrogen with the humate. So what happens is the nitrogen will attach to the humic acid, and you will see less of the processes that degrade or volatilize nitrogen. So nitrogen will either convert to a gas, or it'll be converted by microbes into a nitrate and leach through the soil. So the longer you have that product is not being volatilized or converted, the longer opportunity for that nutrient to be used by the plant. We have university testing that has shown that when you blend these organic acids with the nutrient, you give that plant a longer opportunity to use that nutrient before it's lost, volatilized, or converted.
To get to know more about Live Earth products, you can visit them online at liveearth.com. That is spelled LIVEARTH.com. I'm Sabrina Holberson. Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here is this week's Almond Update.
Today's specialty crop news brought to you by the Almond Board of California. You can find them online at almonds.com. Today we're talking to Almond Board President and CEO Clarice Turner about the recent release of the objective forecast for almond production, which I know industry members have been waiting to see what the USDA is expecting from California. And so, Clarice, let's start there with what the report said and what California producers are looking at for this crop year.
Well, it says that our crop is going to be 2.8 billion pounds. Which is about 7% down from the subjective forecast that was released a couple months ago. And it will, in combination with our carryout coming down, give us a crop that's pretty similar to what we had last year, which is 2.47 billion when you add the carryout and the crop together.
And with this year's crop, there's been some helpful conditions, seems like earlier in the season with bloom weather, and now having a harvest time frame maybe a little bit more closer to the historical average, especially compared to last year, right?
Yeah, that's right. They're definitely projecting that harvest should be on schedule this year. And, we had a solid bloom. The bees were able to do their thing at the time that the blossoms were out there, which is fabulous. And we've had plenty of water for a couple years now. So, and then Mother Nature gave us dry conditions and mild temperatures in May. So that really helped the developing crop too.
And you touched on it a little bit with the carry-in number. It's been a little bit high the past few years now, but that seems like going into harvest this year, things are in a little bit better condition.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, it's dwindling, which is good. And it's because it's been high over the last few years, and that's for a number of reasons. The crop inventory got backed up because of shipping issues in California ports, and then followed by a couple of large crops. So we've worked our way through that, and we're expecting it's going to be south of 500 million pounds. I don't know. I'm guessing somewhere in the 450 to 480, which is healthy because that's important for us to be able to continue to supply the world throughout the year. But, as we work our way through after the inedibles and the production losses are figured in, even just looking at last year, the pounds available for market were 2.39. And now taking out the carryover, it looks like we'll be pretty comparable when you add that to what the projection is for the coming year. So that's really great news for growers.
Yeah, definitely. Good to hear that number is on a downward trend, but that's coming about largely as a result of some pretty strong export numbers, seems like.
Yeah, definitely. Just in general, our shipments have been over 200 million pounds a month for 11 straight months, which has never happened before. So definitely signaling very consistent and strong demand. And I would say, based on my observations and conversations in many of the international markets in Asia and Middle East and Europe, demand is strong and consistent. And you hear it from people. And it's evidenced in that not only with our shipments strength, but almonds continue to be the number one ingredient in new snacks and cereals and baked goods in the US and Europe. And last year, once again, we were number one. And, almonds they're very versatile in flavors. They complement a lot of other flavors and textures. And their shelf life is 2 years just for a kernel. And we also have 14 forms of almonds to play with when chefs are trying to create. So it's really exciting to really see, probably following on the plant-based. Now, I wouldn't even say it's a fad. I would say it's here to stay, but it's a trend in how people want to consume their food. Plant-based protein is definitely something that is here and growing strongly. And almonds fit right into that.
And that's part of what the Almond Board has been working on pretty diligently. I know we've spoke about it before in the past, but it's making sure that those export markets are aware of California almonds, the value that they provide. And it seems like some of those efforts are really paying some dividends with a streak of exports that hasn't been seen before.
That's correct. Yeah. I mean, when I travel with my team and I'm out there, I see growers and handlers and traders and importers from all over the world. And one of our most popular items is our poster that shows all of the different types of almonds that we grow in California and the different characteristics of those flavors, shapes, sizes, grading, all that sort of stuff. But this year, we've also been really focusing on those 14 form factors that I mentioned before. And how to use them. And I'm talking about, beyond the kernel, it's oil and flour and paste and butter, because there's so many ways to use them. They're very versatile, as well as we've really been talking a lot about our environmental stewardship message, because we've done the math on all of the information we've been collecting for years through the CAST program, which is self-reported farmer data. And it's lovely to be able to put that out there in the marketplace, because almonds really are helping the environment. And, of our 7,600 growers out there, 90% of them are family-run farms that are multi-generational in large part. So it's a very proud moment for us as the Almond Board to be able to communicate that and, produce materials that can help people easily understand it.
Yeah, definitely some worthwhile efforts you folks are engaged in and showing some pretty good success there. And so lastly here, as growers are looking at harvest just on the horizon now, any parting thoughts about the months ahead?
Well, it looks like harvest should be on track, barring Mother Nature not throwing us any curveballs between now and then. So I wish everyone luck and, get some rest. I know that it's very, very hard work, and we appreciate each and every grower out there and all the things that they do to make the industry as strong as it is for consistent supply and the highest quality in the world.
A new report suggests that food price inflation is leveling off. Gary Crawford has more.
I'm fairly confident that we're headed in the right direction.
The right direction. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack's reaction the other day after looking at the latest Consumer Food Price Index report, which showed another month of zero grocery store food price inflation. USDA economist Megan Schweitzer told us.
So this month in particular, we saw food at home prices were flat over the month. And in fact, food at home prices have been flat for 3 out of the 4 most recent months.
And Ag Secretary Vilsack told reporters that compared to prices a year ago,
the grocery store cost of food is now at an inflation rate of a little over 1%, which is well below the 20-year average for the inflation rate for food purchased from the grocery store.
On average, food prices generally go up each year by about 2.5%. During the height of COVID, the inflation rate was as high as 11.5%. But since then, and especially this year,
we've seen prices for groceries in particular really level off.
With some foods dropping in price, some others going up. In fact, during June, of the 15 food categories that Megan tracks,
in June, prices rose for 7 categories, declined for 6 categories, and stayed the same for 2 categories. So really, that was what was leading to our no change overall, was sort of that balance between those categories declining and rising.
On the list of price declines during June,
prices fell the most for fresh fruits. Prices were down by 2.6% in June. And so this is at least partially a seasonal factor, where prices fall when fresh fruits come into season domestically. Fresh vegetables as well, we've seen declining prices for 4 months straight.
Overall, price declines month by month have taken prices for some foods down below what they were a year ago at this time.
Prices for fish and seafood are 1% lower than they were a year ago. Prices for fresh fruits are 1.7% lower than they were a year ago. Fresh vegetables are down by 0.3%. And dairy products are down just a smidge by 0.1%.
On the flip side, several products are selling for higher prices than this time a year ago, such as fats and oils, that includes butter. Those fats and oil products are 4% higher. Beef is over 5% higher. And eggs are still costing 10% more than they did this time last year. Gary Crawford reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Despite being slightly cooler than earlier in the month, much of the western U.S. remains under extreme heat, which is expected to build into the weekend. Rod Bain has more.
While extreme heat in the eastern and southern U.S. should decrease throughout the week, USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says,
we'll have to watch the western United States because since about the 4th of July, it has been incredibly hot in the western U.S. with many locations hitting all-time record high temperatures.
And while above normal temperatures remain in much of the West, those readings have been lower than the record-setting period of early July.
The bad news for the West is that we're going to be looking at a resurgence of that heat, not quite to the levels we saw in early July, but certainly back into record-setting territory for some locations, and that will push temperatures well above 100 degrees all the way northward into eastern Washington and parts of Idaho as well.
Increased wildfire threats and heavy irrigation demands are expected as a result of the building western heat. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
That's today's top agriculture news. I'm Sabrina Halverson. Thank you for sharing your morning with us.
To get more information on the topics you heard today, visit AgNet West online at agnetwest.com. You can also stay connected by following us on our social media at AgNet West on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also find our broadcast team of Brian German and Sabrina Halvertson on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for listening to the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. AgNet West Radio Network, your primary choice for agriculture news.